From the brutal mutilation of the hands and feet of rebels who dared mock his mother when he was a young duke, to the horrific slaughter of much of the population of northern England in 1069, William the Conqueror was capable of absolute savagery, the sort of savagery that even those who supported him would sometimes find difficult to justify. Beyond this bloodshed, further studies of William's character reveal a distinctly uncouth man. Becoming Duke of Normandy when he was only 7, William would live through troubled days with a childhood dominated by peril. A young boy holding any position of power, whether that be a duke or king or another notable rank, would be vulnerable to the machinations of greedy rivals, and William found himself surviving plots against him. Growing up like this no doubt shaped the utter ruthlessness that William would demonstrate as he grew into maturity. Any challenge to his authority was unacceptable, and after his victory at Hastings in 1066 and subsequent taking of the English crown, William would face many such challenges across England, but it was the north of the country that really felt his wrath. Whilst William's formative years are perhaps some explanation as to why he took such a hardline approach against rebels, it does not excuse the needless barbarity of William's so called harrying of the North. Countless lives were cut down by fire and sword, with disease spread by the dead bodies that were strewn across streets of towns and villages across the North. Survivors were left virtually skeletal, reduced to finding any sustenance they could in order to survive. This included the flesh of dead dogs, cats, rats, and even humans were consumed. Whilst William had fought a battle at Hastings and won, the first years of his reign over England, arguably the first decade, saw him fighting a war against a determined and resolute English nation, and his massacre of 1069 should be viewed as a war crime. Beyond his obvious brutishness, William did have a sensitive side, of sorts anyway. The insults aimed at his family when rebels hung leather outside the town walls that William was besieging, in mocking reference to his mother, Herleva, who was the daughter of a tanner, infuriated William, at the time a duke in his early 20s. His response was, yes, barbaric, but also an indicator of an underlying vulnerability in William's personality, as he showed himself to be rather thin skinned. William's wife, Matilda of Flanders, also felt the wrath of her husband, with one story alleging that he frog marched her outside naked after she had angered him. Nonetheless, William did value Matilda and was grief stricken at her death in 1083. Throughout the course of his 21-year reign as King of England, William was obsessive with protecting his authority. Castles sprung up far and wide, and enormous taxes were placed on the English population to fund this. Much of William's massive castle building programme can still be seen today, with the most famous example being the Tower of London. Chroniclers remark extensively at William's insatiable thirst for money, born from his desperation to consolidate his power. You wouldn't be too far wrong, if you ask me, to accuse William of extreme paranoia, and it's not hard to see why. In England, William was pestered relentlessly by the likes of Edgar Atheling, who was, in actual fact, the rightful King of England, and Hereward the Wake, the great English rebel. Hereward's determination eventually won William's respect, although that may be because William was beginning to sit a little easier on the throne, as Hereward eventually gave up the fight and joined the king's service. Despite Hereward's brilliant resistance against the Normans, William could certainly recognise a great warrior when he saw one, referring to Hereward as that noble knight. Later in life, William became very overweight but remained steadfastly determined to wage war against his enemies, and it was during a siege in France that William, already in poor state, would sustain fatal injuries, as he was likely thrown from his horse. Overall, the tone of my assessment of William here has been somewhat negative, but one cannot deny that William also had very notable qualities as well. His Doomsday Book was a remarkable piece of administration, and William was also a brave leader. During a panic at Hastings, where his men thought that the Duke had been killed, William lifted his helmet and revealed his face to calm their fears, putting him at risk from an enemy attack should they spot him. And any opportunity he had to raise morale, William would take. On landing in England, William, disembarking from his ship, fell face first into the sand. Leaping to his feet quickly, knowing his men would have taken this as a bad sign, William, with a fistful of sand, exclaimed how easily he had already taken England. On his deathbed in 1087, William expressed his remorse for the harrying of the North, fearful of the questions he may have to answer in the next life that he believed was now coming for him. Despite his brutal ways, there was an undercurrent of vulnerability in William's persona, finding its origins in William's troubled youth.